Okay, so today we're just going to have a quick look at the company worksheets on shareholders' rights. So we'll just bring up the shareholders' rights worksheet. So in this video, we're talking about shareholders' rights, meaning the rights that every shareholder has to vote and how that affects the company. Now we'll just look at sections 35, 36 in this short video and then come back and look at classes of shares. The first thing is, what are shares? They're property. You can own it, you can buy it, you can sell it. Now we're getting that by going to the shares area, and you'll see it's part 6, legal nature of shares through to contracts for issue. So legal nature is straightforward. It simply says it's personal property. So you can buy it, sell it, gift it, use it as security. Personal property being all property other than real estate or real property. Now in the worksheet, the real issue to look at in this first part is what rights does a shareholder have? If I have a vote, if I have a share in a company, I have a vote in the company. And what does that really mean for me? So I want you to summarize section 36 here, and while you're doing it, think about the effect this has on your business plan. So if we have 100 shares in our company and we have our 4 people, for example, with 25 shares each, all this really means is every share has 1 vote. So each shareholder has 25 votes on any particular matter. So that would be appoint or remove a director or auditor. So these resolutions are typically ordinary resolutions, all of these ones are special resolution, of course, but most votes in shareholders' meetings will be ordinary, meaning 50% unless the Companies Act or the Constitution says it's a special resolution of 75 or more. Why is that so important? In our example of 4 shareholders at 25 each, whoever can get the agreement of 3 shareholders will have control because that will be 3 out of 4, 75%. In another company where, for example, we have 2 shareholders, one has 51% and one has 49%, then clearly the 51% shareholder gets to decide who the directors are. And that really means day-to-day control. So that's hugely important. Now the default position, meaning if you don't have a constitution to change these rules, is these rights apply to every share, and also they have a right to an equal share in dividends. So everybody gets paid the same at the same time, which might not be suitable for investors. They also have the right to an equal share in distribution of surplus assets, no preferences. Now, why these are default rules is that the rights specified may be negated, removed that is, altered or added to by the constitution of the company. So again, it's a default. You can change them. And you need to think, should I change any of these in my company? So can the Constitution affect these rights? Well, you can see that's yes from subsection 2. Can we have extra rights? There's nothing in here that says these are the only possible rights. It just says if you don't change them or add to them, these are the defaults. So clearly, they can be added to by the Constitution. So you can make up whatever rights you think you need for your business, provided they're not illegal. How can we change the Constitution if we want to change some of these rules? Well, we've already talked about this. We go back to the Companies Act and we look at Part 5, which applies to the Constitution. And you can see, once again, Section 32, Adoption, Alteration and Revocation. So we have our vote under there, which you should recall is a special resolution. Can shareholders sell to whoever they want? So if I have 25% of the shares in a company, can I sell them? Well, the answer is yes. If someone's prepared to buy them, then I can sell them. Who can I sell them to is the question. So Section 39 says, subject to any limitation or restriction in the Constitution. So there's a big hint to think about, shall I change this rule? A share is transferable. So that is our default position, that as a shareholder, I can sell them, and I can sell them to anyone I want. Now, why that's so important, if we take a company And let's say we have A, B, and C, and they have 33, 33, and 33 shares, so we have a total of 99. C can sell their shares to D, so those 33 go there. That's making quite a mess. I'll just rub that out. Now, if that happens, sometimes these things just don't work for you. What that means is we now have this person sitting there with 33 and this person gone, which, as our first example, is probably okay because A, B, and D have exactly the same voting rights that A, B, and C had, except that A and B went into business with C, and now they're in business with D, and they may not want that. Our second example could be with A, B, and C, so we'll just go back to our originals. What happens if B sells their shares to A? So they're gone, and we just have A and C left. Well, if that's happened, A had 33 and B had 33, so A now has 66 and C has 33. So C is now a minority shareholder, and in an ordinary vote will be beaten by A every time. So A, who might not like C, calls a meeting of shareholders and puts a resolution to the shareholders saying, I want to remove C and appoint somebody else, and A will always win when they do this. Now, what can we do about this? Now, this is where it comes back to changing the default rule in section 39, which said subject to any limitation or restriction on transfer in the Constitution. We have this idea of a preemptive right. So a preemptive right is a first option. Now, typically in company, it means offer the shares to existing shareholders first. And it also means in the same proportion as they already hold shares. Okay, so let's go back to our whiteboard here and just look at an example of preemption rights. So let's assume we have three shareholders, A, B, and C, and they have 50, 25, and 25 shares. So we'll just get rid of that little error. Now, when you look at this ratio, it's a 2 to 1. So let's say C wants to sell their shares. So they're going to sell at 25. Now the current ratio is 2 to 1 to 1. So this person's going to disappear. So all we do is put the 25 over 3, and that would be 8. And we'd say this person has to get 2 of them. So that would be 16, giving them a total of 66. This person have to get 1 of them. That's 8. So that will be 33. Now that doesn't add up right because that's actually 8 point something or other. So it'll be slightly higher. But it means that this ratio is 2 to 1 and this ratio is 2 to 1. So we don't change the relative powers of the shareholders among themselves when we use a preemptive right. Now, this is the point about it in here. It must be in the same proportion as they already have. But what you want to think about here when deciding, do I want to have preemptive rights in my assignment answer in relation to my business plan? The problem is, can you bring in new shareholders if we have preemptive rights? So every time a person wants to sell their shares, those shares have to be offered to existing shareholders. And that preserves the balance and stops people coming in you don't want. But what if the existing shareholders don't have the money to buy? Then typically you would be able to offer them to any person at all. So think about those two issues in particular when you're looking at your assignment and saying, well, should I make my shares freely transferable or should I restrict them? Now, for some very good examples of constitutions and various other shareholder documents, there's a law firm, Simmons Stewart, and they offer a set of templates which are free. And these are excellent examples. Now, I won't bring them up on these tutorials because they are the intellectual property of Simmons Stewart. If they give consent, then I'll start doing that. I haven't asked them yet. But have a look at some of these free legal templates. They have quite a few of them, including things like a example constitution. So we have shareholders agreements, confidentiality agreements, and in there is also in their list is a template for a constitution. Now, you can go through and you can use all their templates. They're all free, and they're actually very, very good. So some of these may help you quite a bit with your business planning as well as other courses potentially. Now they're a bit over the top for most of the things we're going to do in this course, but you can see down here there's a constitution, and so you can see the typical clauses used for preemptive rights between shareholders, and you'll see it's relatively complicated in the sense that it asks a shareholder selling to first notify the directors, and that amounts to an offer to the other shareholders. For our purposes in the constitution, simply refer to your need, or if you don't need, then that you don't need, literally, preemptive rights in your agreement. But do consider them in your assignment. Okay.